Well, good morning. We'll see how I do in front of the camera. I'm not used to doing these videos, and I'm just still trying to get set up for being able to feel comfortable in front of you guys on camera. So we'll make it through. There will probably be several mistakes and edits, and I'll probably have to take some stuff out as I goof up the words. The fact is that I'm not as knowledgeable as Mark Spagnola, the Wood Whisperer, or as talented as Jay Bates when it comes to actually editing my videos and making myself look good. And I'm definitely not as good looking as Mark Lindsay. So let's go forward with this video this morning. I've been receiving lots of questions, so has Shane, about what bits we use. And so I thought it would be good to do a review of the bits we use with a multicolor epoxy pour type of work. There are two types of bits that we primarily use, and when we're doing our multicolor epoxy pours and our carving, those are V bits, and they are surfacing bits at the end for milling. So I thought I'd go through several different V bits that I have and surfacing bits, and just kind of share with you what's in my arsenal. And you don't need to have that many. I'm kind of like a bit hoarder, and I've been collecting them for a little while, trying them out with different ones, and I'll share with you the ones I have, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the ones that I typically use. So let's go do a quick review of the bits that I have. So the bits in the back are my surfacing bits, and they're the ones that I actually use after I've poured all of the epoxy and I'm trying to carve it down to a nice flat area. And I have three different sizes. The first one is 1 1/8 inch, and this is an Amana bit 45525, Amana R45525. I'll put these in the bottom of the description later. And this bit is one that is used for surfacing smaller areas. I don't typically use it, but it's there if I want it. And it's 1 1/8 inch. You can see it's 3 flutes. It's not as big as flutes as my bigger one. This is a surfacing bit that I got with my Laguna IQ when I bought it from Laguna. So it's a Chinese made. It has 2 blades. It's a 1/2 inch shank. And then the one that's the go-to bit that I use 99% of the time, 99.5, is my Amana bit. That's basically, I think it's 2.125, 2 1/8 inches in diameter, might be 2, and then about 2 1/4 inches actually width, but the cutting surface is about 2 inches, and this is my go-to, and it has these interchangeable blades so that if they get dull, I can actually rotate the blades. You'll notice on all my blades, they do need some cleaning. So switching to my V-bits, the first V-bits I bought were these top bits, and I started with the more expensive ones. I was originally purchasing bits with 1/2 inch shanks, and I was told less deformation, better cuts. And then I also bought the ones with the inserts so that I could keep the blades sharp by rotating them. And I was able to buy these bigger bits because I have a machine that has a large spindle versus a trim router, and the gantry is really stiff. Not all people can use these type of bits, so I bought these originally thinking they would be my go-to bits, and they have been for when I make signs and so forth. So when I'm actually doing multi-epoxy pours, I don't use these big bits. Let's start with this one. This is a 90-degree V-bit. I would never use this typically in an epoxy pour. This is one I use for signs. It comes in handy. This is a 60-degree 1/2 inch shank bit. This is a 45-degree bit. These are all Amana bits. This here is another 90-degree bit, and if you look at it, you say, what the heck? These are supposed to be the same 90-degree bits. Well, they are. The angle's the same. It's just the cut depth, which is right here is the maximum cut depth on this bit, which is about 1/4 inch, and this one can go to about 3/4 of an inch deep. This is also a 60-degree V-bit, which is comparable to this 60-degree V-bit. We'll do some more comparisons in a minute. And this is another 90-degree V-bit that I have. So these are all the bits that I was using previously, mostly for sign making, and I don't really use those in the epoxy world. But those are bits that are available in my arsenal. Now, let's go down to my next set of bits, which are all 1/4" shanks. So when I'm actually doing a multicolor epoxy pours, I don't use the big bits. The bits that I do use are those that you see here that are my 1/4" bits. And I have one set which are manufactured by Amana, which were the first sets of bits that I bought when I was, because I was used to buying from Amana. The second set of bits are from a company called R.I.P Precision Tools. And these are the ones I tend to lean towards lately, but I do go back and forth. Both bits are good bits. They'll do the job. It's just that the R.I.P bits are generally cheaper and they're well constructed, and the 30-degree V-bit I particularly like. So let's go with the bits that I normally use. The bits that I normally use when doing multicolor epoxy is a 15-degree V-bit, and the one I have from Amana Tools, and I don't know how well that'll focus, I hope it'll focus, is 45611K, K meaning it's got a special coating on it to make it last longer, stay stronger, so to speak. And the other one that I use from the R.I.P Precision Tools, my 15-degree V-bit, is this one right here. And you can see the shapes are very similar. They're 15-degree bits. And these two are pretty comparable, I'd say. I like the R.I.P Precision Tools prices better than I like the Amana tool prices. And I always keep a couple, 2 or 3 of these bits in my arsenal because, as you can see, the tip is very sharp and can break very easily. And I'll talk more about that later in the video. But you always want to be looking at the tip to make sure it's nice and sharp. It hasn't actually broken. And the bit is prepared and ready to give you nice, clean cuts. So this is a R.I.P Precision Tool bit, 15 degrees. And I don't have a number on it, but I'll put the information in the text section. So those are our go-to bits for the small details, is 15 degrees. The bits for the 30 degree, which you hear us refer to a lot, is in Amana's space, is this 45771. I think that's the 30 degree, if I remember right. And then in the R.I.P Precision Tools, it's this one right here. And what I particularly like about this bit is it's a 3-flute bit. It's very strong, very, very sharp, and it really does a fantastic job in carving the epoxy and for wood inlays. It's a great bit, and it's significantly cheaper than the Amana bits. So I tend to lean towards these bits, but both of them are great bits and they'll do the job. Just, it's your choice. So the two bits that we typically use are the 15 degree and the 30 degree. That's not to say that you can't use bigger bits. You can. As a matter of fact, before I discovered the 15 degree V-bit, I have these 18 degree V-bits from Amana. I had actually been using these 18 degree V-bits for a while. And you can see this one's wore a little more. This is the same bit without the coating. So these are good bits also when you're doing multicolor epoxy pours. Once again, you want to be very careful with the tips because the tips can easily break. Other bits that I have available, which I use more for sign making than multicolor epoxy. This is, for example, a 45 degree V-bit from Amana. Notice that this bit cuts the same pattern as this bit, and the only difference is the actual depth of the cut, which is a 1/4 inch here. And this one can go up to 3/4 of an inch as a 45. And so it's always interesting to me that this bit is the same as this bit, except with the depth of cut. And the depth of cut is something I don't normally go beyond 1/8 of an inch for making signs, or 1/4 of an inch. You could. If I want to, I have these. These were the first ones I started with. I do use this 90 degree occasionally to create miters and do miter edges. And that's another video for another time. And I have a 60 degree V-bit that I use quite a bit for sign making. I used to use this one quite often, or I would use this other 60 degree by Amana, both 1/4 inch. But notice these two are the same bit. This one will cut about 3 to a 3/8 of an inch deep to 1/2 inch. This one will cut a 1/4 inch deep. And most of my signs are not carved greater than a 1/4 inch. So this usually works pretty well. And I tend to stick with this one and then use a flat depth with it. But if I want another characteristic, I can use this 60 degree or this 60 degree and go deeper, which would be a much more bolder sign. And then the last bit that I have, which is a 90 degree V-bit, again 1/4 inch depth. This is actually the same as this one. Right here, these are the same. Or as this one. Or as this one. All of these are 90 degree V-bits, just different applications. I've really started enjoying these bits that I cut down a 1/4 inch. And so there's my set of bits that I use. One last set of bits that I have available are these itty bitty things I got off Amazon. I haven't really tried them yet, so I'm anxious to see how they cut eventually. But honestly, I have a hard time handling these small little short shanks and getting them in the collet nice and tight. And then this is a 10 degree V-bit though. It'll be interesting to see, 10 degrees. Cheap. It was like 10 bucks for 10 bits or 20 bucks for 10 bits, so I don't have high hopes, but just thought it'd be kind of fun to show. Now that we've talked about these bits, I thought we should talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of these bits that you need to be careful of. Remember what I talked about. The tips are very, very sharp, and they're part of the cutting process. So you really want to make sure that you're keeping those tips safe. I think you can see how sharp these tips are. Now, to do that, you got to take care when you're handling them. And I think some of you have noticed before that I keep a styrofoam piece down whenever I'm changing the bits, because these can easily fall out. And if they fall out of your collet and hit this hard surface, that will break these tips. So make sure you have something protecting the bits when you're putting them in and out of the collet. The other thing that is common that creates problems in talking with the R.I.P Precision Tools owner that they have a problem with is these tips are gentle, are sharp and fragile. The other thing they have a problem with is people on their automatic tool setters. You can see this is a metal puck, and all of them are metal pucks because they have to be able to conduct to be able to stop it. And a couple things happen. One is these aren't always set accurately, so they come down in there really hard. And in fact, that's something I had to change in my puck here for my Laguna, was the speed by which it was touching down. You can even see the little dents in there from earlier touchdowns before I changed the speed. And so lots of times these things aren't actually calibrated in a way that for these fragile pucks will prevent breaking the tips off. So I had suggested that I would talk to people about making sure their touchdown points didn't put excessive stress. And the individual told me he'd prefer that people not use those touchdown pucks at all. If you don't know how to zero your bit without the touchdown puck, take a look at some of my earlier videos. You'll see that when I'm using zeroing my bits, I typically use the paper method. If you remember watching my videos, was simply placing a piece of paper down until there's a slight drag as I come down. So he really recommends do not be using these metal pucks with these fragile bits as a warning. So I would suggest that if you're using these touchdown points with these 30 degree and 15 degree, these bits that have the extra sharp points on these V-bits, you should avoid it with V-bits. You can do what you want, but that will preserve your bits and make sure that they last much longer. Well, it's been a pleasure sharing the information on the V-bits that I have in my arsenal and how I use those bits. Throughout the various videos, you've seen us refer to the two bits normally used in multicolor epoxy, which is the 15 degree V-bit and the 30 degree V-bit. I gave you a couple manufacturers bit versions of those, and we shared some information about how to treat those bits and being cautious when you're zeroing the bit and changing the bits to ensure that we don't accidentally break the tips. It's especially a bummer if you break the tip and you don't even realize it until you're in the middle of cutting some epoxy and it's not going the way you want it to. You're starting to get tear out or other bad things happening. So knowing about your V-bits and the characteristics of those V-bits are very important. And taking care of them is very important. I talked about a wide range of V-bits in this video. I talked about bits all the way from 90 degrees all the way down to 15 degrees and in between. And I compared the different looks of those because it can be confusing, because a 90-degree V-bit can be the same size as a 1/4 inch shank, or you can have a great big head on it that goes out to a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, like the 90-degree V-bit I have with the blades. So when we're referring to V-bits, we're always talking about the angle on the bit itself, and that's this angle right here. All of the rest of this is just gravy, or is extra characteristics of that bit and not as critical. Remember, a V-bit will always sink down to the point where the bit itself, as you're coming down here, covers the width of the vector it's trying to carve. So if that vector is bigger than this bit, then it will keep going down and actually go through the material. We covered that in an earlier video. So that's important to recognize about V-bits. I just thought it would be good to do a review for some. This is really old stuff, but for others that are getting into this CNC work, maybe this information on V-bits will help them. I hope so. In my next video, I'm actually going to cover how you can determine how deep a bit should go based on these angle characteristics here. A gentleman named Rob Schuster has provided me an Excel table, and we'll talk about different size vectors and how deep each one of these bits should go. So that'll be in the next video. With that, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Share it with others. If you have comments or questions, feel free to put those in the comments section. And by all means, if you subscribe, you'll be getting future videos as I release them. I hope your life is going for you in the way you want it to. I know sometimes it's rocky, but I hope it gets better. And I hope all is well, and that you're having a great day, and that you're enjoying your hobby or profession in woodworking and using your CNC to make beautiful products. Have a terrific day.